At 65, I've made a choice that might surprise you. I've started avoiding people. Not everyone, mind you, but many more than I used to. And before you think this comes from a place of bitterness or loneliness, let me stop you right there. This decision has brought me more peace, clarity, and genuine happiness than I've felt in decades. For years, I was the person who showed up for everyone, every birthday party, every favor requested, every coffee meetup that I didn't really want to attend. I was there. I believed that being a good person meant being available to everyone, all the time. But somewhere along the journey to 65, I realized something profound. Not every connection deserves the energy it takes to maintain it. This isn't about becoming a hermit or giving up on humanity. It's about something psychologists called socio-emotional selectivity, a natural and healthy shift that happens as we age. Research from Stanford University shows that older adults don't withdraw from people due to depression or decline. Instead, we become wiser about where we invest our limited time and energy. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or approaching this stage of life, you might recognize yourself in what I'm about to share. And if you're younger, consider this a glimpse into a future where less truly becomes more. Today, I'm sharing the 7 research-backed reasons why avoiding people at 65 isn't just acceptable, it's one of the wisest decisions I've ever made. Time becomes precious in ways you can't imagine when you're young. Here's something nobody tells you about getting older. Time doesn't just pass differently, it feels different. When you're 25, time stretches ahead like an endless highway. At 65, it feels more like a precious collection of moments, each one with its own weight and significance. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology reveals something fascinating. As our time horizons shorten with age, we fundamentally reorganize our priorities. This isn't pessimistic, it's adaptive and wise. Dr. Laura Carstensen at Stanford has spent decades studying this phenomenon, and her findings are revolutionary. When we perceive time as limited, we stop wasting it on what psychologists call preparatory goals, networking for some distant future benefit, maintaining shallow friendships out of obligation, or attending events that drain rather than energize us. Instead, we shift toward emotionally meaningful goals, experiences and connections that matter right now. I felt this shift happen gradually. That coffee date with an acquaintance who only talks about herself, I realized it was stealing 2 hours I could spend reading a book I love or calling my granddaughter. That community meeting where everyone complains but nothing changes, I recognized it as time I'd never get back. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. Every yes to something that doesn't nourish me is a no to something that does. Every hour spent with energy vampires is an hour stolen from people who truly matter. Studies show that older adults who embrace this selective approach report higher well-being and life satisfaction. We're not missing out by choosing carefully. We're finally understanding what matters. The morning light streaming through my kitchen window, the weight of a good book in my hands, the sound of genuine laughter with my closest friend. These moments have become treasures I guard jealously. Time isn't running out. It's being spent wisely, perhaps for the first time in my life. Smaller social circles lead to greater happiness. Here's a truth that contradicts everything society tells us. Having fewer friends as you age isn't a problem, it's a solution. Research from the University of California and multiple longitudinal studies reveal that older adults deliberately prune their social networks, and this selective reduction actually enhances emotional well-being. When I was younger, I believed success meant having a packed social calendar and a phone full of contacts. Now I understand that was exhausting and ultimately meaningless. The study from the Berlin Aging Study found that adults in their 70s and 80s maintained just as many emotionally close relationships as younger people. They simply dropped the peripheral ones. And guess what? They were happier for it. I've watched my own circle shrink from dozens of regular contacts to perhaps 8 people I genuinely connect with. These aren't just any 8 people. They're the ones who ask how I'm really doing, who remember what matters to me, who show up not just in good times, but when life gets messy. The rest? Former coworkers I felt obligated to meet quarterly, neighbors I'd chat with out of politeness, old friends with whom I'd exhausted all conversation years ago. I've let those relationships fade naturally. This isn't callousness. According to a 2023 study published in Frontiers in Psychology, relationship quality matters far more than quantity for older adults' well-being. In fact, the research showed that lonely individuals who focused on deepening a few key relationships experienced greater improvements than those who tried to expand their social networks. A meta-analysis by Wurzis and colleagues examining social network changes across the lifespan found that network size naturally decreases starting in early adulthood and continuing through old age, and this reduction correlates with increased emotional well-being. I'd rather have one friend who truly knows me than 10 acquaintances who know only my surface. I'd rather spend a meaningful afternoon with my daughter than attend 5 parties where I feel invisible. This selectivity isn't about closing doors. It's about finally understanding which doors were worth opening in the first place. Your energy is finite. Spend it like the treasure it is. Let's talk about something aging teaches you quickly. Energy is no longer unlimited. This isn't about physical decline or weakness, it's about biological reality. And here's where science validates what we instinctively feel. Conserving energy for what truly matters is smart, not lazy. Research published in Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews explains that older adults strategically reduce their social contacts, partly to conserve physical and cognitive resources. This isn't withdrawal, it's optimization. Just as we've learned to pick our battles in life, we learn to pick our social investments. I used to push myself to attend events even when I knew they'd leave me drained. A 3-hour dinner party with casual friends would wipe me out for the next day. A long phone call with someone who never asked about my life would leave me irritable. I kept showing up because I thought I should. Now I understand that my energy is a finite resource, and how I spend it determines my quality of life. Studies show that older adults who regulate their social engagement report better mood, less stress, and more life satisfaction. We're not being antisocial, we're being strategic. The differential investment of resources model in psychology explains this beautifully. As we age, we invest time and energy more carefully into relationships based on emotional closeness and genuine connection. We stop spreading ourselves thin and start going deep with the people who matter. This energy conservation also affects what psychologists call cognitive load. Small talk, surface-level conversations, and maintaining appearances all require mental energy. When I skip the neighborhood gathering where everyone makes polite chit-chat about nothing, I'm not just saving physical energy, I'm preserving cognitive resources for conversations that actually stimulate and fulfill me. I've learned that being tired isn't always physical. Emotional exhaustion from unfulfilling social obligations is real and valid. Now when I feel that resistance to a social commitment, I listen to it. That resistance is wisdom speaking, telling me to protect my peace and conserve my energy for what truly enriches my life. Our brains actually become more positive if we let them. Here's one of the most fascinating discoveries from aging research. As we grow older, our brains naturally shift toward processing positive information more than negative. Scientists call this the positivity effect, and it's one of nature's greatest gifts if we don't sabotage it by surrounding ourselves with negative people. Research from the Stanford Center on Longevity demonstrates that older adults recall more positive than negative images, focus attention on positive stimuli, and experience emotions more positively than younger adults. This isn't denial or cognitive decline, it's an adaptive shift in how we process information. But here's the crucial part. This positivity effect is strongest when we have cognitive resources available. Toxic relationships, draining social obligations, and negative people literally interfere with our brain's natural tendency toward positive processing. I noticed this shift in myself around age 60. The friend who constantly complained about everything started affecting my mood more severely than she used to. The family member who criticized everyone behind their backs began leaving me feeling contaminated after each visit. My brain was naturally trying to focus on positive aspects of life, but these relationships were forcing me to dwell on negativity. Studies show that older adults with high cognitive functioning demonstrate stronger positivity effects, but this effect diminishes under stress and cognitive load. Translation: surrounding yourself with difficult people literally prevents your brain from experiencing the natural positive shift that comes with age. When I started distancing myself from negative relationships, something remarkable happened. I began noticing beauty more, the way light hits my garden in the afternoon, the satisfaction of a perfectly brewed cup of tea, the sound of birds in the morning. These weren't new phenomena. I just finally had the mental space to appreciate them. Research published in the Journals of Gerontology confirms that older adults who curate their social environments to include more positive interactions show better emotional regulation, greater life satisfaction, and even better physical health outcomes. By avoiding people who drain me, I'm not being negative. I'm allowing my brain to do what it naturally wants to do at this age: focus on the good, savor the meaningful, and let the rest fade into the background where it belongs. Being alone and being lonely are completely different things. One of the most important distinctions I've learned is this: solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. In fact, they're often opposites. Loneliness is feeling disconnected, even in a crowd. Solitude is feeling whole while alone. A groundbreaking 2024 study published in BMC Public Health introduced the concept of positive solitude in older adults, showing that meaningful time alone contributes to improved health, well-being, and quality of life. This challenges everything we've been told about aging and social isolation. I spent decades equating being alone with being lonely, so I filled my calendar relentlessly. Every empty evening felt like failure, every quiet weekend like something was wrong. But research from the University of Groningen shows that older adults who embrace solitude, choosing meaningful alone time rather than having it forced upon them, experience it as restorative rather than isolating. Now, my solitary mornings are sacred. I sit with coffee and watch the world wake up. I read without interruption. I think my own thoughts without someone else's agenda infiltrating them. This isn't loneliness, it's peace. The difference became clear when I stopped seeing social obligations that made me feel lonely, even while surrounded by people. You know the kind: parties where you're present but invisible, gatherings where conversation never goes beneath the surface, relationships where you do all the emotional work. Those situations left me feeling more alone than an evening by myself ever could. Research distinguishes between social isolation, objective lack of social contact, and loneliness, subjective feeling of disconnection. Paradoxically, you can be socially isolated and not lonely, or socially engaged and deeply lonely. Studies from the National Institutes of Health show that quality of relationships matters far more than quantity for preventing loneliness in older adults. My deliberately chosen solitude has become a source of strength. In quiet, I hear myself again. In stillness, I remember who I am beyond other people's needs and expectations. I've discovered that the relationship with myself, cultivated in solitude, is the foundation for every other relationship in my life. Avoiding people hasn't made me lonely, it's made loneliness impossible because I finally learned to be good company for myself. The world changed, but we don't have to chase it. At 65, I've watched the world transform into something almost unrecognizable. Technology connects us constantly, yet somehow leaves us feeling more disconnected. Everyone is busy, distracted, perpetually on. And somewhere in this chaos, I decided I don't have to participate. This isn't nostalgia or resistance to progress. It's a conscious choice about where I direct my attention. Research shows that chronic connectivity and information overload significantly impact stress levels and well-being, particularly in older adults who grew up in a different pace of life. I've started setting boundaries that would have seemed impossible in my younger years. I don't answer my phone just because it rings. I don't respond to every text immediately. I've removed social media apps that left me feeling worse about life rather than better. Each boundary feels like reclaiming a piece of myself. The constant expectation of availability exhausted me. The performance of online life, curating, sharing, comparing, felt hollow. When I started stepping back, I worried people would think I was rude or disconnected. Instead, the people who truly mattered understood. The ones who didn't matter revealed themselves by their reactions. Studies on digital well-being show that older adults who set clear boundaries around technology use report significantly higher life satisfaction. We're not obligated to live at the world's frenetic pace just because that pace exists. Now, when I hear my phone buzz with another group text about nothing important, I can ignore it, guilt-free. When someone expects immediate engagement with their drama, I can step back. This isn't about rejecting connection. It's about refusing to let the noise of modern life drown out the signal of what actually matters. Peace isn't found in keeping up. It's found in consciously choosing to step aside. Permission to be yourself, finally. Perhaps the greatest gift of reaching 65 is this. I've stopped apologizing for who I am. I no longer contort myself to fit others' expectations. I don't smile when I'm not happy, agree when I disagree, or show up where I don't want to be. Research on authenticity and aging shows that older adults who live according to their own values, rather than perceived social obligations, report significantly higher well-being and life satisfaction. We've earned the right to be ourselves. This authenticity means saying no without elaborate explanations. It means admitting, that doesn't interest me, instead of inventing excuses. It means showing up fully for what matters, and not at all for what doesn't. I've noticed younger people sometimes viewing this directness as rudeness, but those my age, they understand completely. We've spent decades being who everyone else needed us to be. Now we're finally being who we actually are. Studies from developmental psychology confirm that this shift toward authenticity is not only normal but healthy. Older adults who embrace their authentic selves show better emotional regulation, reduced anxiety, and greater life satisfaction than those who continue performing for others. The people I avoid now are often those who can't accept my authentic self, who want me to remain the people-pleasing, always available person I used to be. Letting them go isn't cruel, it's honest. And the space they leave behind fills with something more valuable. Integrity. Living authentically doesn't mean being harsh or uncaring. It means being real. And after 65 years of living, I've finally figured out that being real is more important than being liked by people who never truly knew me anyway. Embracing the wisdom of selective connection. So yes, I'm 65, and I avoid people now.
But I'm not lonely, bitter, or disconnected from life. In fact, I'm more connected than ever to myself, to the people who truly matter, and to the present moment. The science backs up what my heart already knew. This selective approach to relationships isn't decline, it's wisdom. It's my brain adapting to recognize what truly matters. It's my experience teaching me where to invest precious energy. It's my life finally becoming mine. The relationships I've kept are deeper, richer, and more meaningful than any I had when my calendar was full. The time I spend alone nourishes rather than depletes me. The peace I've cultivated by setting boundaries protects my well-being in ways nothing else could. If you're approaching this stage of life, or already in it and feeling similar impulses to step back, to simplify, to protect your peace, trust yourself. You're not becoming antisocial, you're becoming wise. You're not giving up on connection, you're getting better at it. Life is too short to spend on relationships that drain you, obligations that don't serve you, and maintaining appearances for people who don't really see you anyway. At 65, I've learned that avoiding people is sometimes the most loving thing you can do, for them, but especially for yourself. And in that space you create, you might just discover the peace, authenticity, and joy you've been searching for all along. Thank you for listening. May you find the courage to protect your peace too.